A 13-year-old girl in Netherlands is given a diary for her birthday. 2 days later, she starts writing in it. It would have been the typical diary of a typical teenage girl, only it was the June of 1942. Adolf Hitler had launched his aggressive campaign against the Jews of continental Europe. His armies had taken over much of the continent already. Australia, Czechoslovakia, and Poland falling one after the other like matchsticks. And when the Germans entered Netherlands, the little girl, also a Jew, went into hiding with her father, Otto Frank, her mother, Edith, sister Margot, and another family of three in a sealed-off room concealed behind a wooden bookcase in the upper annex of the building her father worked in Amsterdam. There she would remain in hiding with the others for 2 years until they would all be betrayed and then whisked away by soldiers of the occupying German forces to a concentration camp where she would ultimately die of typhus, a mere 2 weeks before she would have been liberated along with the others by British troops had she managed to pull up herself through the illness. Anne Frank was 15 years old when she died in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in the early days of March 1942. Her short young life snuffed out tragically by the workings of a twisted manic ideology. Born in June 1929, Anne Frank would have probably led a life of obscurity had her diary not been published by her father in 1947. She would have remained a number of faceless statistic lost in a government file supposedly documenting the human side of the Second World War. But it was not to be so. Though she had started writing in her diary in the summer of 1942, it had never been with the intention of creating a record of her experience as a Jew in hiding. Anne's diary was for her a space to express herself in the most honest and candid of terms. She shied away from writing nothing, revealing all and bearing her very soul on the pages of the diary. However, in March 1944, Anne heard a radio broadcast by a member of the Dutch government in exile in London who spoke of wanting to create a public archive of the Dutch people's experience of oppression under the German regime. regime. He asked the people to save all the letters, their diaries, journals, and photographs, for they would all prove invaluable to his project. Inspired, Anne began editing her journal with the intention of submitting it for publication once the war was over. She worked her way through 2 years of writing, always staying true to what she had seen and being true to what she had written. Today, Anne Frank's diary is one of the most important documents to have survived. Hitler's madness, official records, and political discourses aside, it is through the victim and the survivor's voices alone that a human story can be woven out of historical tragedies, and Anne's diary just does this. She was 13-year-old when she started writing. She had nothing to prove, no hidden agendas to achieve, no propaganda to spread. She wrote simply because she wanted to. She wrote with the great innocence and sincerity that only children can possess. But what she wrote was not as innocent as she herself was. Amidst all the controversies and debate that have surrounded the Holocaust, Anne's diary, one of the most meticulously maintained and revealing of documents to come from the victim's side, has become a symbolic text of the Holocaust. Children read abridged versions of the diary as a part of the academic curriculum to acquaint themselves of what a girl their age faced during a particularly terrible time in the 1940s. Academians and historians revolve works of great merit around it, using it as an authentic source point of historical truth. Of the diary itself, Dutch journalist and historian Jan Romein said in 1946 that although stammered out in a child's voice, it embodies all the hideousness of fascism, more so than all the evidence at Nuremberg put together. Anne's voice has reached out across continents and generations. Her diary has kept the victims of Holocaust from slipping into an otherwise inevitable anonymity. She has given others like her a face and a life. She has made it real for those all who lived through it and for those who came after her, like us. It is said that the wound the psyche of a people suffers cannot be healed by its closing up. It is only in keeping the memory of the wound alive, the remembering and ensuring that the people find their true catharsis. 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 The diary of a young girl, in as many times as it is read and discussed, in as many times as it inspires dialogue and the historical debates will bring in this catharsis closer. June 12, 1942. I hope I will be able to confide everything to you as I have never been able to confide in anyone, and I hope you will be a great source of comfort and support. Sunday, June 14, 1942. I'll begin from the moment I got you, the moment I saw you lying on the table among my other birthday presents. I went along with along when you were brought, but that doesn't count. On Friday, June 12th, I was awake at 6 o'clock, which isn't surprising since it was my birthday, but I'm not allowed to get up at that hour, so I had to control my curiosity until quarter to 7. When I couldn't wait any longer, I went to the dining room where Morgie, the cat welcomed me by rubbing against my legs. A little after 7, I went to Daddy and Mama and then to the living room to open my presents. And you were the first thing I saw, maybe one of the nicest presents. Then a bouquet of roses, some peonies, and a potted plant. From Daddy and Mama, I got a blue blouse, a game, a bottle of grape juice, which to my mind tastes a bit like wine. After all, one is made from grapes, a puzzle, a jar of cold cream, 2.50 guilders, and a gift token for 2 books. I got another book as well. Camera obscura, but Margaret already has it, so I exchanged mine for something else. A platter of homemade biscuits, which I made myself, of course, since I've become quite an expert at baking biscuits. Lots of sweet, and a strawberry tart from mother, and a letter from German Grammy. Right on time, but of course that was just a coincidence. Then Hannely came to pick me up, and we went to school. During recess, I had out biscuits to my teachers and my class, and then it was time to get back to work. I didn't arrive home until 5 since I went to gym with the rest of the class. I'm not allowed to take part because my shoulders and hips tend to get dislocated. As it was my birthday, I got to decide which game my classmates would play, and I chose volleyball. Afterwards, they all danced around me in a circle and sang happy birthday. When I got home, San Lederman was already there. I'll Wagner, Hanley Gosler, and Jacqueline Van Marsen came home with me after gym. Since we're in the same class, Hanley and San used to be my two best friends. People who saw us together used to say, "There goes and San." I only met Jacqueline Van Marsen when I started at the Jewish Lyceum, and now she's my best friend. Isle is Hanley's best friend, and San goes to another school and has friends there. They gave me a beautiful book, Dutch Sagas and Legends, but they gave me volume 2 by mistake, so I exchanged two other books for volume 1. Aunt Helene brought me a puzzle, and Stephanie a darling brooch. Wait, what? Okay, Aunt Stephanie a darling brooch, and Aunt Lenny a terrific book. Daisy Goes to the Mountains. This morning, I lay in the bed thinking how wonderful it would be if I had a dog like Rin Tin Tin. I'd call him Rin Tin Tin too, and I'd take him to school with me, where he would stay in the janitor's room or by the bicycle racks when the weather was good. Monday, June 15, 1942. I had my birthday party on Sunday afternoon. The Rin Tin Tin film was a big hit with my classmates. I got two brooches, a bookmark, and two books. I'll start by saying a few things about my school and my children and my class, beginning with the other children. Betty Blumendahl looks rather poor, and I think she probably is. She lives on an obscure street in West Amsterdam, and none of us know where it is. She does very well at school, but that's because she works so hard, not because she's clever. She's pretty quiet. Jacqueline Van Marston is supposedly my best friend, but I've never had a real friend. At first, I thought Jack would be one, but I was badly mistaken. DQ. DQ is a very nervous girl who's always forgetting things, so the teachers keeps giving her extra homework as punishment. She is very kind, especially to GZ. What? GZ, yeah. ES talks to so much it isn't funny. She always touches your hair or fiddling with your buttons when she asks you something. They say she can't stand me, but I don't care since I don't like her much either. Henny Metz is a nice girl with a cheerful disposition, except that she talks in a loud voice and is really childish when we're playing outdoors. Unfortunately, Henny has a girlfriend named Peppy, who's a bad influence on her because she's dirty and vulgar. JR, I could write a whole book about her. J is a detestable, sneaky, stuck up, two faced gossip who thinks so grown up. She's really got Jack under her spell, and that's a shame. Jay is easily offended, bursts into tears at the slightest thing, and to top it all, is a terrific show off. Terrible show off. Miss J always has to be right. She's very rich and has a wardrobe full of the most adorable dresses that that are much too old for her. She thinks she's gorgeous, but she's not. Jay and I can't stand each other. Isle Wagner is a nice girl with a cheerful disposition, but she's extremely finicky and can spend hours moaning and groaning about something. It's Isles. Okay, Isles like me. Isles likes me a lot. She's very clever, but Clever but lazy, Henley Gosler, or Lies as she's called at school. What the hell? Okay, Henley Gosler, or Lies as she's called at school, is a bit on the strange side. She's usually shy, outspoken at home, but reserved with other people. She blabs whatever you tell her to her mother, but she says she thinks, and lately I've come to appreciate her a great deal. But she says what she thinks, and lately I've come to appreciate her a great deal. Nanny Van Prague Cigar is small, funny, and sensible. I think she's nice. She's pretty clever. There isn't much else you can say about Nanny. Eve J. De Jong is, in my opinion, terrific. Though she's only 12, she's quite the lady. She treats me like a baby. She's also very helpful, and I like her. Jize is the prettiest girl in our class. She has a nice face, but is a bit stupid. I think they're going to hold her back a year, but of course, I haven't told her that. And sitting next to Jize is the last of us 12 girls, me. And sitting next to Jize is the last of us 12 girls, me. There's a lot to be said about the boys, or maybe not so much after all. Morris Coster is one of many admirers, but pretty much of a pest. Sally Springer has a filthy mind, and rumors has it that he's gone all the way. Still, I think he's terrific because he's very funny. Emil Bonwit is Jesus' admirer, but she doesn't care. He's pretty boring. Rob Cohen used to be in love with me too, but I can't stand him anymore. He's an obnoxious, two-faced, lying, sniveling little twit who has an awfully high opinion of himself. Max van de Veld is a farm boy from Madame Blake, but a decent sort, as Margaret would say. Harmach Koopman also has a filthy mind, just like Juby de Beer, who's a terrible flirt and girl chaser. Leo Blom is Joby de Beer's best friend, but has been spoiled by his dirty mind. Albert de Masquita came from the Montessori school and jumped a year. He's really clever. Leo Slager came from the same school but isn't as clever. Roos Toppelman is a short, goofy boy from Almelo who transferred to this school in the middle of the year. Cian does whatever he's not supposed to. G. Jackus Cockernot sits behind us next to C, and we, G and I, laugh ourselves stupid. Harry Schka is the most decent boy in our class. He's nice. Warner Joseph is nice too, but all the changes taking place lately have made him too quiet, so he seems boring. Sam Solomon is one of those tough guys from the rough part of town. A real brat admirer. Abby Ream is pretty orthodox, but a brat too. Saturday, June 20, 1942. Writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me, not only because I've never written anything before, but also because it seems to me that later on neither I nor anyone else will be interested in the musings of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I feel like writing and I have an even greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. People has more patience than people. I thought of this saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and was sitting at home with my chin in my hand, bored and listless, wondering whether to stay in or go out. I finally stayed where I was brooding. Yes, paper does have some more patience, and since I am not planning to let down anyone else, read this stiff-backed notebook Granty referred to as a diary. Unless I should ever find a real friend, it probably wouldn't make a bit of difference. Now I'm back to the point that prompted me to keep a diary in the first place. I don't have a friend. Let me put it more clearly, since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world, and I'm not. I have living parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. I have a throng of admirers who can't keep their adoring eyes off me and who sometimes have to resort to using a broken pocket mirror to try and catch a glimpse of me in the classroom. I have a family, loving aunts, and a good home. No, on the surface, I have everything except my own one true friend. All I think about when I'm with friends is having a good time. I can't bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary, everyday things. We don't seem to be able to get any closer, and that's the problem. Maybe it's my fault that we don't confide in each other. In any case, that's just how things are, and unfortunately, they're not liable to change. This is why I've started the diary to enhance the image of this long awaited friend in my imagination. I don't want to jot down the fact in this diary that way most people would do, but I want the diary to be my friend, and I'm going to call this friend Kitty. Since no one would understand a word of my stories to Kitty if I were to plunge right in, I'd rather provide a brief sketch of my life, much as I dislike doing so. My father, the most adorable father I've ever seen, didn't marry my mother until he was 36 and she was 25. My sister Margaret was born in Frankfurt am Main in Germany in 1926. I was born on 12 June 1929. I lived in Frankfurt until I was 4 because we are Jewish. My father immigrated to Holland in 1933 when he became the managing director of the Dutch Opeta company, which manufactures products of used in making jam. My mother, Edith Hollander Frank, went with him to Holland in September, while Margaret and I went to Aachen to stay with our grandmother. Margaret went to Holland in December, and I followed in February when I plonked down on the table as a birthday present for Margaret. I started right away at the Montessori nursery school. I stayed there until I was 6, at which time I started first form. In sixth form, my teacher was Mrs. Q. Perez, the headmistress. At the end of the year, we were both in tears as we said a heartbreaking farewell, but because I had been accepted at the Jewish Lyceum, where Margaret also went to school. Our lives were not without anxiety, since our relatives in Germany were suffering under Hitler's anti-Jewish laws after the pogroms in 1938. My two uncles, my mother's brother, fled Germany, finding safe refuge in North America. My elderly grandmother came to live with us. She was 23 years old at the time. After May 1940, the good times were few and far between. First, there was the war, then the capitulation. After May 1940, the good times were few and far between. First, the war, then the capitulation, and then the arrival of the Germans, which is when the trouble started for the Jews. Our freedom was severely restricted by a series of anti-Jewish decrees. Jews were required to wear a yellow star. Jews were required to turn in their bicycles. Jews were forbidden to use trams. Jews were forbidden to ride in cars, and even their own. Jews were required to do their shopping between 3 and 5 p.m. Jews were required to frequent only Jewish-owned barber shops and beauty salons. Jews were forbidden to be out of the streets between 8 p.m. and 6 p.m. Jews were 6 a.m. Jews were forbidden to be out on the streets between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. Jews were forbidden to go to theaters, cinemas, or any other form of entertainment. Jews were forbidden to use swimming pool, tennis courts, hockey fields, or any other athletic fields. Jews were forbidden to go to rowing. Jews were forbidden to take part in any athletic activity in public. Jews were forbidden to sit in their gardens or those of their friends at 8 p.m. Jews were forbidden to visit Christians in their homes. Jews were required to attend Jewish schools, etc. You couldn't do this and you couldn't do that, but life went on. Jack always said to me, I don't dare do anything anymore because I'm afraid it's not allowed. In the summer of 1941, Grandma fell ill and had to have an operation, so my birthday passed with little celebration. In the summer of 1940, we didn't do much for my birthday either, since the fighting had just ended in Holland. Grandma died in January 1942. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. This birthday celebration in 1942 was intended to make up for the others, and Grandma's candle was lit alongside with the rest. The four of us are still doing well, and that brings me to the present date of June 20, 1942, and the solemn dedication of my diary. That's it for today. Today was day one of reading. From tomorrow, I'll continue it even more. And it's like 5 pages, I guess. I read one, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, I read 9 pages. That's good. I should read more. The pronunciation wasn't that good. But it was quite okay. I was kind of getting stuck among those that were more of a little hard to pronounce. For example, Czechoslovakia. I kind of had to search it up on the internet, and then I could actually only after that I could pronounce it well. This is how things are happening. I have to be more okay, but then it's not that bad. Today's reading was almost 7 on 10. I didn't hate it. It was quite nice, but I realized I'm not slow. I'm pretty much okay with that of the pronunciation, but the thing is that I'm not good at pronunciating if it's kind of very long. For example, if it's like super long to talk, I mean if it's like very long sentence, that it just like kind of takes me very hard time to do it in a proper way because I tend to mispronounce. That's what I'm talking about. Next, from the next day, or maybe I'm gonna do it like after maybe in the afternoon itself. Let's see when I will do it, but I have to read even more because my pronunciation isn't that good. Right now it just ends here because it's been 30 minutes already, and now I'll move on to the next one. I have decided to do what I have decided to do, I guess, an origami would be. No, I don't think origami is a nice idea. I think so. I want to start with writing my opposite hand. That's a better idea. Thank you.